So as parents, we all want to raise great kids. We want our kids to smile, shake hands, look folks in the eye. All of these things is what we aspire and hope all of our kids to become. But this tendency to raise good kids could actually be hurting your player on the court. No, I'm not advocating you teach your kid to be mean or you teach them bad principles, but there are some things we have to do in order to get good kids to shed that persona when they go onto the court and become fierce competitors. So I want you to imagine this. Imagine you're raising a kid who has all the intangibles. They're great socially. They're great when it comes to their leadership skills. They're always saying and doing and thinking the right thing. But when they put on that jersey and lace up those shoes and that ball goes up in the air for tip-off, they become a straight killer. They are the most competitive. They are engaging in their emotions. They are becoming a different type of leader that coaches and players look up to for their competitive nature. Imagine a Caitlin Clark, a Peyton Manning, an Angel Reese, and Kobe Bryant, and other athletes who can provide these great personas off the court, but are straight killers on the court. And I was one of these athletes. I'm talking about straight A student, all honors classes, third in my high school class, all American, involved with tons of clubs and activities that ingratiated me to all segments of school life. But when those people who didn't know me as an athlete came to see me play, they would be in shock by my level of competitive. I was the all-time leading scorer for my school. My jersey hangs in the rafters. And not only that, my level of aggressiveness even stood out at the college and professional level. And it wasn't because of my physical abilities. It was just because I got that dog in me, just straight up, just to be truthful with you. And when we as parents and professionals put off this persona, that's often what we get back from our student athletes, the professional persona. And that's great. That's going to take them so far, not only in this game, but also in life. But there is a certain element of competition, and I don't care if it's on the court competition or it's in the classroom competition, because when I was in law school, I had to compete. The grades were on a curve and there were only so many A's given out. And at some point, when the rubber meets the road, your kid has to have a different level of competitive desire within him or her. And today I want to talk about how I was able and how you will be able to develop that dog when it comes to competition and still be that great kid off the court. But let me tell you this, if your kid is the same person that was in the car prior to the game or at home prior to the game, that was cleaning up and doing their homework and playing with their siblings and saying the right things and doing the right things, if that's the same kid you see on the court, we've got a problem. If you don't see a completely different person that you almost don't recognize, we've got a problem. Your kid is leaving some competitive juices on the table and hasn't realized the ability to access that part of who they are. The ability to go there is important for all of us. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I had neighbors and grandparents and friends of a friend who knew me but didn't know me as an athlete would come and watch me play, and they would leave in shock. Like, that is a completely different person than the Jason I know. That's what we want to access from your kids. This is the competitive nature we want your kid to be able to access. And I'm going to give you a couple pointers on how we can begin to bring that dog out of your kid. And I want to make the point clear, I wasn't always that way. I spent so much of my career being a good kid off the court and a good kid on the court until I learned that on this court, good guys finish last. Okay? And I don't mean that from the standpoint of playing dirty. I don't mean that from the standpoint of not playing for your teammates and not playing for others. I mean that from the standpoint of competing with every element of our energy, every iota of who we are, our passion, being able to be poured out. That is what I mean by that dog, that killer, that animal instinct, okay? And because I had this time when I wasn't on the court killer to this time where I became an on the court killer, forgive me if the word killer offends you, but this is the only way I know how to put into context this inner persona we have to really bring out of us when it comes to competition. But back to my story, because I was not a killer and learned how to become a killer, I can now go back and kind of access when that transition took place. And one of the things I remember distinctly is I began to refuse to lose. And think about that. Think about the Michael Jordans. Think about these great athletes, the Ray Lewises, the Caitlin Clarks, the people that we think about win so often and have this incredible competitive nature about themselves. They refuse to never, ever lose. But what I realize is when I'm talking about refuse to never lose, it has nothing to do with the scoreboard. It has nothing to do with the end of the game. If you base your competitive energy on whether you're winning or losing, which so many kids do, it's going to be a problem. You're going to find yourself with highs and lows because nobody in the history of anything has ever won everything. But there are some things that you can control that you can never, ever lose, that you truly can never lose. The first one is to never lose an opportunity. If your athlete can develop the mindset, and every time they step on that court, it's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to move their game forward. If they start to develop that mindset that I will never, never, ever lose out on an opportunity to better myself, their energy is going to be so consistent. Another thing they want to never lose is the energy battle. They never want to allow any person on the court to have a greater level of energy, a higher frequency level than them. And this is something I started to learn because I would go to these national camps and it's just little old me from Oklahoma and I'm playing against this kid that's on the front of Slam magazine. I mean, we got Zach Randolph and Darius Miles and Deshaun Stevenson and all these players who had fame and notoriety across the nation. And I noticed they would come in with energy. Chris Duhon, guys like this, they walk in the room, they shake everybody's hand like they own the place. They start the drills off like they knew exactly what they were doing. And you know what I started to realize? They were just people just like me. They would make mistakes, they would miss shots, they would kick the ball off their foot just like me. But they had an incredible energy in which those highs and lows didn't affect what they brought to the court, the energy in which they conducted themselves. I think about us as adults. When we go to work, we've got a winning energy, most of us. We don't come to work and kind of like, what's the vibe today? How's it going? We come in, hey, how are you? Let's go. How was your day? How was your night? This is what we've got to do today. This is a type of energy. If our athletes can learn to never lose the energy battle, they will become killers on the court. Another thing that they can learn to never lose at is their focus. Kobe Bryant was one of my favorite players coming up, just like a lot of people. And one of the things I started to notice about Kobe is he used to do this a lot. He used to rub his shirt. Go back and watch old videos of him shooting free throws. And sometimes it could be mid-game, sometimes in big moments. He would just kind of rub his shirt. And what I realized was he was bringing himself back in the moment. He would have different things he would do because often in the course of a game, just like in a course of life, one of the things that happens with the human brain is it can often go into autopilot when we're doing habitual things. So it's like when you're driving, you can often turn your brain off and all of a sudden you wake up, you realize where you are and you're close to home or to work. If you're in class, our brains often turn off because it's a signal to our brain, which is our most powerful muscle, to use less energy because this is a pattern it recognizes. What it causes our players to do is often lose focus because they go to so many trainings, they go to so many practices, the brain shuts down, just like reading a book. You read so many pages and the brain's like, I recognize this. I don't need to devote all of my energy to it. And it can be an energy killer. And what we have to do to overcome this is little hacks that just keep us in the moment, whether it's touching ourselves, whether it's clapping up, whether it's talking to somebody, whether it's high-fiving, whether it's jumping up and down, your athlete can learn to never lose the focus battle as well and be well on their way to becoming a killer on the court. The next thing I want to talk to you about is no Ds, because when I really made the jump, when I became someone who was incredibly confident, there was this AAU team when I was in the 8th grade, and it was comprised of the best players in the city. And my dad took me to the tryout, and I thought I did well. I was nervous, obviously. A lot of these kids were bigger, faster, stronger, and it turns out I didn't make the team. And even worse, for me anyway, those kids went on to win the national championship in AAU that summer. I mean, you had kids on that team that played at University of Oklahoma, Texas Christian University, University of Tulsa, and some even bigger schools than that. Well, this kind of hurt my confidence. This told me I wasn't among the best players in my city or in my state even. Well, what I began to do was obviously continue to put in the work, but I just began to go into a cocoon in which I cultivated my confidence, not based on outside factors, but based on internal factors. And what began to happen was I began to develop what I now call no Ds. First and foremost, if you want to be a killer on the court, you can't have doubts. You have to learn to never, ever doubt yourself. And that's hard. It's easier said than done. But if you're someone who always has to know how it's going to happen, or you're someone who is based in logic, know that sometimes if you just put your head down and put in the work, you'll be there in the end. You're just as good as anybody else. Because what happened for me was, fast forward 3 years later, I was a top 5 player in the state on every list you could think of. And I ended up actually having better careers than almost everyone on that team. And I ended up playing with them on other teams later in my career. And so what I'm saying is, I caught up because I began to erase all doubts. Another D that you can get rid of is distractions. And this was something that came natural to me. And maybe if your kid is a good kid, it probably comes natural to them because they don't have a lot of distractions. Maybe there's video games, maybe there's girlfriends or boyfriends, but in order to be a killer, we've got to prioritize our development as players and what's going on the court more than what's going on anywhere else. And my wife, who was my girlfriend in high school, can attest to this. As much as I wanted to spend time with her, she actually came second to this court. And so whatever it is, I don't care if it's video games, I don't care if it's bad elements, I don't care if maybe your kid is somebody who's playing multiple sports. They've got to put down the distractions in order to access their ultimate ascension. The last thing I'm going to tell you about is denial. Your athlete has to develop the ability to not be denied. And what that means is you're going to have to run through some walls. You're going to have to go through some challenges. I remember one of the biggest hits to my confidence was when I didn't make the varsity team as a freshman. I knew I was one of the better freshmen and I thought I deserved a spot. Well, I didn't. And you know what I did? Again, like the other situation, I put my head down and I worked and I worked and I worked. And you know what? Middle of the season, coach came to me and he gave me a jersey and he put me on the varsity team. Now, I didn't get to play at that time, but I wasn't going to be denied. And fast forward 6 months later, I'm not only a starter, but I'm the leading scorer on the team. Just because of this energy, you're not going to deny me. I may have to go around you, I may have to go over you, I may have to go through you, but I don't care what the situation is, I'm not going to be denied. I remember when rankings started to come out and I wanted to be a top 100 player nationally and I wasn't on anybody's list. And I began to develop the mindset, I'm not going to be denied. I don't care where I have to go, I don't care what I have to do, you're not going to deny me. And so when you can start to help your young athlete develop the mindset that no, I'm never going to doubt myself. No, I'm not going to ever let any distraction take me down. And no, I'm never going to let anything or anyone deny me, no matter what the situation looks like, then you're developing a killer on the court. Last thing I want to talk about when it comes to killers is that competitive energy. And I call this the animal instinct. You have to help your young athlete develop the ability to become an animal. And what that looks like is three things: energy, emotions, and eat, okay? Energy, as I talked about earlier, an animalistic energy is a different level of energy. Whether it's how they defend, whether it's how they warm up, whether it's how they attack the basket or attack rebounds, we have to begin to develop a different energy prior to walking on this court. One of the things you can do is check out not only our Mindset Masterclass that comes on every Saturday at 12 p.m. Central, but we've got a lot of great meditations to help kids, help athletes get in that zone before their game. In addition to the energy, notice that one thing about animals, their emotions are always here. Even though they have a high energy, emotionally, you don't see animals, going crazy. Obviously, there's funny animal videos. But what I'm talking about is when we're tracking a lion, whether they're eating or not, they're consistent. They're not, oh, woe is me, and I'm so mad I didn't get to play this. My shot's not falling. That somebody said something to me. I got fouled. But consistent energy. Because one thing an animal knows is that their time will come. There's a faith element there that is involved in that energy that helps them to stay balanced. The last thing I'm going to tell you is animals eat. They go out looking to hunt prey. And that's the biggest thing I can tell you to go from a straight A student to a straight killer on the court is killers come to hunt. And when I began to look at my competition like food, like I am going to absolutely obliterate them today, that's when I became a killer. That's when I was no longer Mr. Nice Guy. I'm looking at that person who may be my best friend, who may be someone I've played with for multiple years. As soon as this ball goes up and your jersey is facing my jersey, I'm going to eat you. I'm going to eat you in every single way. And that is a mindset we have to begin to develop within our kids. So, hope you liked this video. If you liked it, watch more videos, not only our meditation mindset series, but like I mentioned, our mindset masterclass, and we'll see you in the next video.